Place: Adams, Tennessee, USA. Date: 1817 to 1821. The Bell family's nightmare began one quiet evening in 1817. John Bell, the family patriarch, noticed a strange creature lurking in his cornfield. Its body resembled a large dog, but its head looked disturbingly human. John fired his rifle, but the creature vanished into thin air. From that night on, unexplainable phenomena plagued the Bell household. At first, it was subtle, faint tapping sounds on the walls, the rustling of unseen footsteps outside. But soon, the manifestations became violent. The family would hear a woman's voice singing hymns in the dead of night, her voice shifting from angelic to guttural growls. Pots and pans flew across the kitchen as if hurled by an unseen force. Betsy Bell, John's young daughter, became the primary target of the spirit's wrath. She woke up screaming in the middle of the night, claiming icy hands had slapped her face. Her hair would be yanked with such force it left her scalp bleeding. The spirit introduced itself as Kate, claiming to harbor a grudge against John Bell for reasons lost to time. Neighbors, priests, and even the famed Andrew Jackson visited the house, hoping to confront the entity. Jackson himself reportedly fled, saying, "I'd rather face the entire British army than spend another night in that house." Kate's hatred for John reached its peak in 1821 when John fell ill. One morning, the family found him dead in his bed, and a mysterious black vial lay on his bedside table. The spirit cackled, "I gave him that poison." With John gone, Kate seemed satisfied and slowly vanished. Even today, locals claim the spirit never fully left Adams. Visitors to the old Bell farm report hearing whispers and seeing shadowy figures flitting between the trees. If you thought the Bell Witch was terrifying, wait until you hear about a deadly mystery that unfolded in the frozen wilderness of Russia. Let's move to the next chilling tale. Place: Ural Mountains, Russia. Date: February 1959. 9 experienced hikers, led by Igor Dyatlov, embarked on an expedition through the Ural Mountains. They were prepared for the harsh winter conditions but could never have prepared for what awaited them. Weeks later, their bodies were discovered scattered across the snowy landscape, and the details of their deaths defied all logic. When rescuers found their campsite, the hikers' tent was shredded from the inside, as if they'd fled in terror. They left behind their boots, jackets, and supplies, running into sub-zero temperatures wearing only socks or barefoot. Their bodies were found in various states of horror. 2 hikers were discovered under a cedar tree, their hands raw and bloodied as if they tried to climb it in desperation. 3 others were found between the tree and the campsite, their bodies frozen mid-run. The final 4 were buried under snow in a ravine. These bodies showed gruesome injuries: fractured skulls, crushed ribs, and internal damage equivalent to a high-speed car crash. Yet, there were no external wounds. Adding to the mystery, one hiker's eyes and tongue were missing. Their clothes showed traces of radiation, and investigators noted that the surrounding trees were burned at their tops. Witnesses later reported seeing strange orange lights in the sky on the night of their deaths, fueling theories of UFO involvement or secret military experiments. Despite decades of investigation, no conclusive explanation has ever been found. Locals believe the hikers disturbed something ancient and malevolent lurking in the mountains. The terror of the Dyatlov Pass leaves us shivering, but our next story will take you into the unsettling bond between 2 twins whose connection became a deadly obsession. Let's move on. Place: Broadmoor Hospital, England. Date: 1970s, 1993. June and Jennifer Gibbons were inseparable twins who communicated in a language no one else could understand. From an early age, they were ostracized for their strange behavior, which grew more unsettling as they got older. They would sit in their shared bedroom for hours, staring into each other's eyes, completely silent to the outside world. As teenagers, their bond took a darker turn. The twins began writing macabre stories about murder and revenge, sharing a journal filled with disturbing fantasies. They also turned to petty crime, setting fires and vandalizing property. Their behavior led to their arrest and eventual placement in Broadmoor, a high-security psychiatric hospital. Inside Broadmoor, their bond became toxic. Jennifer wrote in her diary, "I'm possessed by her shadow, and she is possessed by mine. One of us must die so the other can truly live." This chilling prophecy came true in 1993 when the twins were being transferred to a lower security facility. Jennifer fell ill on the journey, complaining of a tightness in her chest. Hours later, she was dead. Doctors were baffled. Her death was attributed to a sudden, inexplicable heart condition. June, now freed from her twins' influence, began speaking to reporters, describing their bond as both a blessing and a curse. "She sacrificed herself for me," June said. Visitors to their childhood home claimed to hear faint giggles and whispers in the room where the twins once plotted their eerie tales. The tragic bond of the silent twins haunts us, but nothing can prepare you for the terror of a cursed house that drove a family to flee for their lives. Let's continue. Place: Amityville, New York, USA. Date: November 13th, 1974. December 1975. On November 13th, 1974, the quiet town of Amityville was rocked by a grisly crime. Ronald DeFeo Jr. had brutally murdered his parents and 4 siblings while they slept. He claimed to hear voices urging him to commit the killings. But the story doesn't end there. This was only the beginning of a nightmare that would haunt the house for decades. A year after the murders, the Lutz family moved into the infamous house at 112 Ocean Avenue, unaware of the horrors that awaited them. George and Kathy Lutz, along with their 3 children, initially thought they'd found their dream home. But their dream turned into a living nightmare within days. George woke up every morning at 3:15 a.m., the exact time of the DeFeo murders. The family began hearing strange noises, footsteps echoing down empty hallways, doors slamming shut without warning, and whispers that seemed to come from the walls. The children complained of an unseen figure staring at them while they slept. One night, Kathy was startled awake by a feeling of icy hands gripping her shoulders. She looked in the mirror and saw her face morphing into that of an old woman with hollow, sunken eyes. George, meanwhile, became obsessed with the basement, claiming he could feel a malevolent presence emanating from beneath the house. The family's dog refused to enter certain rooms, barking frantically at seemingly nothing. The final straw came when they discovered green slime oozing from the walls and a pig-like creature with glowing red eyes staring through the windows. After just 28 days, the Lutz family fled the house, leaving all their belongings behind. Paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren later declared the house a hub of demonic activity, claiming it contained a portal to hell. Though skeptics have challenged the Lutz's account, the Amityville horror remains one of the most infamous hauntings in history. The terror of Amityville is enough to make anyone shudder. But the next story takes us to a dark forest in Japan where countless lives have been lost. Let's move on. Place: Aokigahara Forest, Japan. Date: 1950s, present. Aokigahara, also known as the Sea of Trees, lies at the base of Mount Fuji. On the surface, it looks serene, a lush forest filled with ancient trees and winding trails. But beneath its beauty lies a dark reputation as one of the most haunted places in the world. For decades, Aokigahara has been a hotspot for suicides. Visitors often stumble upon abandoned tents, shoes, and eerie personal belongings left behind by those who entered the forest intending never to return. Even more disturbing are the stories of those who've survived their visit. Hikers report hearing whispers and soft cries echoing through the trees, though they find no one around. Compasses and GPS devices malfunction, as if the forest itself wants to trap its visitors. Locals warn that spirits of the deceased, known as urei, haunt the forest, luring the living into its depths. One such account involves a man named Hiroshi Tanaka, who entered Aokigahara in 1998, hoping to photograph its eerie beauty. He stumbled upon a small clearing where he saw a woman in a white kimono standing motionless. Thinking she was lost, he approached her, but she vanished before his eyes. Moments later, he heard her laughter, chilling and echoing all around him. Rescue workers in the area often speak of strange occurrences, like finding mannequins dressed in funeral attire or hearing the faint sound of bells jingling when no one is near. To this day, Signs in the forest urge visitors to reconsider their actions, but the eerie allure of Aokigahara remains. The chilling cries of Aokigahara leave us unsettled, but our next story will take us to a cursed village that disappeared from maps. Let's continue. Place: Rajasthan, India. Date: 1825. Kuldhara was once a thriving village, home to the Paliwal Brahmins, known for their prosperity and ingenuity. But in 1825, the entire population vanished overnight, leaving behind a desolate ghost town. Legend has it that the village was cursed by its inhabitants to remain uninhabited forever. The story goes that the local ruler, Salim Singh, was a tyrant who demanded to marry the village chief's daughter. Refusing to comply with the cruel ruler's demands, the villagers devised a plan. They packed their belongings, abandoned their homes, and disappeared into the night. Before leaving, they cursed the land, ensuring that no one could ever settle there again. To this day, anyone who attempts to live in Kuldhara experiences unexplainable tragedies, illnesses, financial ruin, or death. Visitors to Kuldhara report feeling uneasy, as if they're being watched. Shadows dart between the crumbling houses, and the air is heavy with a sense of dread. Some claim to hear the faint sounds of laughter and footsteps, as though the villagers never truly left. Kuldhara's haunting silence gives way to our next tale, a horrifying encounter at a lonely gas station in the Nevada desert. Let's move on. Place: Nevada Desert, USA. Date: 2003. In the middle of the vast Nevada desert, on a lonely stretch of road, sits an abandoned gas station. For years, it was a popular stop for travelers until a tragedy struck in 2003. A young woman named Emily Carter was traveling alone from Reno to Las Vegas when she stopped at the gas station late at night. She was never seen alive again. Emily's car was found parked neatly by the pumps, her belongings untouched, but there was no sign of her. The gas station attendant claimed she entered the restroom and never came out. Search parties scoured the area for weeks, but Emily had vanished without a trace. Soon after, reports of strange occurrences at the gas station began to surface. Drivers who stopped there late at night claimed to see a woman in a white dress standing near the pumps, her face obscured by long, dark hair. When approached, she would vanish into thin air. One truck driver reported pulling into the station at 2 a.m. He saw the woman and waved to her, assuming she was another stranded traveler. But as he got closer, he noticed her feet weren't touching the ground. She turned toward him, revealing hollow, black eyes before disappearing. The gas station was eventually abandoned after multiple attendants quit, citing eerie phenomena. Items would fall off shelves on their own, lights flickered constantly, and an unseen presence was often felt in the restroom where Emily was last seen. To this day, travelers on that stretch of road avoid the gas station, warning others that stopping there could lead to a one-way ticket into the unknown. The ghostly figure of Emily still haunts the desert, but our next story takes us deep into the Appalachian Mountains, where an ancient entity preys on the unsuspecting. Let's move on. Place: Appalachian Mountains, USA. Date: 1800s, present. The Appalachian Mountains are steeped in folklore, but one story stands out among the rest: the tale of the Appalachian Wraith. For centuries, locals have spoken of a shadowy figure that roams the dense forests, feeding on fear and despair. The Wraith is said to be the spirit of a woman who was accused of witchcraft in the early 1800s. Banished by her village, she wandered the mountains, her despair turning to rage. She cursed the land, vowing vengeance on anyone who dared to enter her domain. In 1998, a group of college students decided to hike a remote trail in the Appalachian Mountains. They laughed off the warnings of the locals, dismissing the Wraith as mere superstition. But their laughter soon turned to terror. As night fell, the students heard whispers coming from the trees, though they saw no one around. The whispers grew louder, transforming into anguished screams. One student, Mark, claimed he saw a woman with skeletal hands and glowing eyes watching them from the shadows. When the group tried to leave, they found the trail they'd come from had vanished. The forest seemed to shift around them, trapping them in a labyrinth of trees. One by one, they disappeared. Days later, Search parties found their belongings scattered across the forest, but the students were never seen again. Locals warned that the wraith preys on those who enter her territory with ill intent, feeding on their fear until they vanish into the ether. The wraith of the Appalachians leaves a chill in the air, but our next story takes us to a haunted hospital where the cries of the past echo through its empty halls. Let's continue. Place, Louisville, Kentucky, USA. Date, 1926, present. Waverly Hills Sanatorium was built in 1926 to treat tuberculosis patients during the height of the epidemic. It quickly became a place of suffering and death, with over 63,000 recorded deaths during its operation. The most infamous feature of the sanatorium was the body chute, a tunnel used to discreetly transport the dead away from the patient's view. After the hospital closed, stories of paranormal activity began to surface. Former staff reported hearing the disembodied screams of patients and seeing shadowy figures roaming the halls. The most infamous ghost is that of a nurse who hanged herself in room 502 after discovering she was pregnant and unmarried. A scandal at the time. In 2003, a group of paranormal investigators spent the night in Waverly Hills. They reported hearing faint coughing, footsteps echoing down empty hallways, and whispers that seemed to come from inside the walls. One investigator claimed she was pushed by an unseen force near the body chute. Visitors to the sanatorium often leave with scratches and bruises, unable to explain how they got them. The building's reputation as one of the most haunted places in the world continues to draw thrill-seekers and paranormal enthusiasts. The dark history of Waverly Hills is haunting, but our next story will plunge us into the icy waters of the Atlantic, where the ghosts of the Titanic still linger. Let's move on. Place, Atlantic Ocean, site of the Titanic wreck. Date, April 14, 1912, present. The RMS Titanic, one of the greatest maritime disasters in history, sank into the icy depths of the Atlantic Ocean on April 14, 1912, after striking an iceberg. Over 1,500 lives were lost in the tragedy, leaving behind an enduring legacy of sorrow and, some say, restless spirits. For decades, stories have emerged of ghostly encounters connected to the Titanic. Survivors reported eerie dreams of drowning and voices calling to them from the sea. But the hauntings didn't end there. In the 1990s, a team of divers exploring the wreck claimed to hear muffled cries and faint music emanating from the sunken ship. One diver, John Prescott, described hearing what sounded like a phonograph playing "Nearer, My God, to Thee," the hymn believed to have been played by the Titanic's band as the ship went down. Artifacts recovered from the wreck have brought their own hauntings. The Titanic exhibit at a museum in Las Vegas is said to be plagued by unexplained phenomena. Staff members report hearing whispers, seeing shadowy figures, and experiencing cold spots near items such as a recovered deck chair or pieces of fine china. Perhaps the most chilling account comes from a night guard who claimed to see a woman in early 20th century attire staring intently at a display case. When he approached, she vanished, leaving behind only a faint scent of seawater. The Titanic's legacy is one of tragedy, but its ghosts ensure that its story is never forgotten. From the icy depths of the Atlantic, we move to the sprawling wilderness of Alaska, where a cursed valley holds its own terrifying secrets. Let's continue. Place, Nahanni Valley, Northwest Territories, Canada. Date, 1908, present. Known as the Valley of Headless Men, Nahanni Valley is a remote wilderness in Canada's Northwest Territories. Its beauty is undeniable, with lush forests, roaring rivers, and dramatic canyons. But its name comes from a chilling history of unexplained disappearances and gruesome discoveries. In 1908, gold prospectors Willie and Frank McLeod ventured into the valley, lured by tales of untapped riches. They never returned. 2 years later, their headless remains were found near the Nahanni River. No one could explain what happened to them. Over the decades, more prospectors and explorers met similar fates. In 1917, a trapper named Martin Jorgensen was found burned to death in his cabin, his head missing. Locals began to whisper of a curse, claiming the valley was guarded by vengeful spirits of the Dean people who once inhabited the region. modern visitors to Nahanni Valley report strange occurrences. Disembodied voices, footsteps in the forest, and glowing orbs of light that seem to follow them. One hiker, Linda Perkins, recounted a harrowing experience in 2002. While camping alone, she awoke to the sound of heavy breathing outside her tent. Peeking out, she saw a tall, shadowy figure standing motionless just feet away. By morning, it was gone, leaving no trace. Theories about the valley range from cryptid activity to supernatural forces, but no explanation has ever fully accounted for its grisly reputation. The curse of Nahanni Valley leaves us breathless, but the next story takes us into the eerie silence of a haunted lighthouse, where the past refuses to rest. Let's move on. Place: Flannan Isles, Scotland. Date: December 1900. The Eilean Mor Lighthouse stands on the desolate Flannan Isles, battered by the relentless waves of the North Atlantic. In December 1900, its three keepers, Thomas Marshall, James Duckett, and Donald MacArthur, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a mystery that has haunted Scotland for over a century. When a relief crew arrived to replace the keepers, they found the lighthouse eerily empty. The dining table was set for a meal that had never been eaten, and a single chair was overturned as if someone had left in a hurry. The logbook revealed strange entries. The men had reported severe storms, even though nearby weather stations recorded calm seas. The final entry simply read, "The storm has passed. God is over all." Locals believe the men were taken by the spirits of the island, angered by the intrusion of modern technology. Visitors to the lighthouse have reported seeing shadowy figures standing at the windows and hearing faint voices calling for help. One paranormal investigator, Greg Patterson, spent a night at the lighthouse in 2015. He claimed to hear the sound of heavy boots climbing the stairs and saw the light in the tower turn on, despite the mechanism being non-functional. The Eilean Mor Lighthouse remains a beacon of mystery, its unanswered questions echoing through time. From the windswept shores of Scotland, we journey to the bustling streets of Los Angeles, where a cursed hotel harbors dark secrets. Let's continue. Place: Los Angeles, California, USA. Date: 1927. Present. The Cecil Hotel, located in downtown Los Angeles, has a dark and sinister history that has earned it the reputation of being one of the most haunted places in the United States. Built in 1927, the Cecil was intended to be a luxurious destination for travelers, but over the years, it became infamous for violence, suicides, and mysterious deaths. The most infamous incident occurred in 2013, when 21-year-old Elisa Lam mysteriously vanished while staying at the hotel. Weeks later, her body was discovered in the rooftop water tank after guests complained about the water's taste and color. Surveillance footage of Elisa in an elevator, seemingly interacting with an unseen entity, went viral, sparking countless theories. But Elisa's story is just one of many. The Cecil was home to two serial killers, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, and Jack Unterweger, who both lived there while committing their crimes. Guests and staff frequently report paranormal activity, such as sudden cold spots, shadowy figures, and unexplained sounds. A former guest, Maria Hernandez, recounted a chilling experience in 2018. She stayed in room 712, unaware of its dark history. During the night, she heard knocking on the walls and the sound of someone sobbing. When she checked the hallway, it was empty. The next morning, she awoke to find, "Help me," scrawled in condensation on the bathroom mirror. The Cecil Hotel has since been rebranded, but its dark past and lingering spirits ensure its haunting reputation endures. The shadowy halls of the Cecil Hotel still echo with despair, but our final story takes us to a quiet town in England, where an ancient poltergeist terrorizes all who dare to enter. Let's move to the next. Place: Enfield, England. Date: 1977. In 1977, the Hodgson family began experiencing a series of unexplainable events in their modest home in Enfield, England. It started with strange noises, knocking and scratching, coming from the walls. Soon, furniture moved on its own, objects flew across rooms, and the children, Janet and Margaret, reported seeing a dark figure lurking in the shadows. The activity escalated when Janet, 11 years old, appeared to be the focus of the poltergeist. Witnesses claimed to see her levitate, speak in a guttural voice that wasn't her own, and display knowledge of events she couldn't possibly know. Investigators recorded chilling audio of the voice, which claimed to be Bill Wilkins, a man who had died in the house years earlier. One night, a neighbor, Peggy Nottingham, stayed with the family to provide comfort. She described seeing a chair slide across the room by itself and hearing a deep, gravelly laugh echoing through the house. The case attracted national attention, with reporters, police, and paranormal investigators all witnessing the activity firsthand. Skeptics dismissed the events as a hoax, but many professionals, including members of the Society for Psychical Research, remained convinced the events were genuine. To this day, the house remains infamous. Visitors report cold drafts, eerie sounds, and a feeling of being watched. Janet, now an adult, still insists the events were real, though she wishes she could forget them. And there you have it, the haunting tale of the Enfield poltergeist, a chilling conclusion to our journey through true, terrifying stories. Thank you for joining me on this spine-chilling journey through 15 of the most terrifying true stories from around the world. If these tales kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Night Story, and hit the bell icon to stay updated on more gripping content. These stories are not just for entertainment. They serve as a reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown. Which story left you most terrified? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, sleep tight, if you can.